Good evening, Broncos country. We are live. But before we get started, we want to make sure we have all of our platforms included for tonight's discussion. All right. And I see green check marks across the board. Welcoming everyone to another episode of the Orange and Blue View podcast. I am one of your hosts, Ron White. On that side of me, you know him, you love him, Mr. Dylan Von Arks. Dylan, how are you doing today on this nice Saturday? At least the weather here in Georgia is nice.
Well, we talked a little bit before we started the show, but getting a little anxious. There's a lot of teams re-signing players that maybe the Broncos have been interested in, and Denver themselves don't really have guys that need to be re-signed unless you like Cody Barton or whoever. Um, so just waiting till Monday to finally get some news rolling our way instead of big moves like we saw with the Raiders here just yesterday.
Yes, most definitely, most definitely. It's been kind of slow, and mile high, but on the doorstep of free agency. We'll see what happens, what moves the Broncos decide to make. But before we get into that conversation, we want to say hello to a few people that have joined us this evening. And we got Mr. Ernie Mays coming in from Facebook. Thank you, Ernie. It's always good to see you, my man. He says, Go Broncos country only. Go Bo Nix for 6. Yes, thank you, Ernie. Thank you, Ernie, for coming in. We appreciate you, my guy. And we got Mr. David McElrath, the Papa Bear. It's always good to see you too, man. Welcome in. He says, Good evening, Broncos country. Hashtag let's go Bo. Thank you, David, for coming in. You know we always appreciate you, my man. It's good to see you. It's good to see you. And we got Roy Osborne coming in from Facebook. Thank you, Roy. He says, Good evening, Ron and Dylan Von Arts. Good evening to you too, Roy. Hopefully you're doing well and you've had a good Saturday, good weekend so far. And we got Amy Alice coming in. Oh, from X here. Good evening, Broncos country. Good evening to you as well. Thank you, thank you, thank you for coming in. We appreciate it. All right, Dylan. So some news broke that has some AFC West implications. Actually came on down the pipe yesterday. So Geno Smith, the Las Vegas Raiders have acquired Geno Smith from the Seattle Seahawks for a 2025 third round pick. So Geno now joins his old coach and Pete Carroll with the Raiders. So what are your thoughts there? And I know the Raiders have a lot of work to do, but how does that change the landscape of the AFC West and implications for the Raiders? I think they have the number 6 overall pick. It goes from there. What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I was surprised. The former Pete Carroll quarterback I was thinking of, and probably a lot of Broncos country was thinking of, was Russell Wilson, right? And he still remains without a job. We'll see where he ends up. But yeah, Geno Smith coming over to the Raiders. I think this is actually a sneaky good move for them. Obviously, an upgrade over Minshew and Aiden O'Connell, who were pretty abysmal last year, as has been the case for the Raiders for quite a while. But I think Geno is a solid quarterback. I think he's going to fit great with Pete Carroll. Obviously, he had one of his best seasons. His coming out party, years into his career under Pete Carroll in that Seattle offense that likes to run the ball and just needs steady quarterback work. And I think it's going to be a good fit as long as the Raiders can beef up that offensive line, especially the interior. They got
Mm-hmm.
you guys at tackle who are pretty solid, but Geno Smith, the reason he's out of Seattle is, well, obviously money is one thing, right? But boy, did that Seattle offensive line, it sucked ever since I can remember. I know Russell
Yeah.
Wilson, he likes to bail out early and do all that stuff, but back in Seattle, it was kind of warranted. Their offensive lines have been god awful for quite some time, and once if Geno can get some good protection, I think he could be pretty good. Now, am I scared? No, but I'm gonna pay attention. I'm gonna keep my eyes open on that.
Yeah, I think Geno does provide the Las Vegas Raiders with stability, at least in the short term. Now, does it preclude them from taking a quarterback in the draft? No. And I believe that that deal, I think he was seeking, or I think there are talks of maybe him getting around 40 to 45 million, which I think based on his level of play is reasonable. So it does kind of elevate that quarterback room and the team. Now, it's really going to be dependent upon, what they do to surround him. You alluded to the offensive line. Again, good, not great. Yeah, that interior, it does need some work on the Raiders offensive line. Um, and then, what you do at the offensive skill positions. Now, obviously, he has Brock Bowers to work with, so that'll be great. But they're going to need help with the running back position. Um, obviously wide receiver. So there are quite a few holes, and even on defense. They have holes across the roster, but I think given this move with the stability, it allows them to not, maybe be seeking that quarterback, early in the draft. Because I know there were a lot of mocks, maybe with a Cam Ward and or Shador Sanders being there for the Raiders to take. But I think, Dylan, this is prime Ashton Genty territory because Pete Carroll's philosophy: play good defense, run the football. And so now with this move with the Raiders, it's going to be interesting to see what happens, kind of what they do with that pick. But I would say kind of what he's had in Seattle. Um, I wouldn't be surprised if that number 6 overall pick is for Ashton Genty out of Boise State.
Yeah, and that's a scary thought, right? Because you get Pete Carroll, who loves to run the ball. I mean, it's just almost a no-brainer, right? Get the best running back in the draft in Ashton Genty, which Broncos fans I know are hoping falls to us, or we're getting striking distance of trading up and taking him, because he would be an amazing weapon on any offense. Anyone would take him. But to go to the Raiders, man, I mean, that's got to sting almost as much as your guy Brock Bowers going there last year.
Yeah.
But yeah, and you mentioned Geno Smith's stability, right? Obviously, last year his touchdown interception ratio not very good, 21 to 15. But his first year with Pete Carroll, we know very well because of that opening game. I was there live, absolutely dreadful. He went 30 for 11 touchdown interceptions. So if they can get a few key pieces, hey, Tyler Lockett's out there, maybe finishes out his career with Pete Carroll and the Raiders. That'll have some familiarity there at least. But I could see the Raiders being decently successful. But like you mentioned, they are heavily flawed, not only on offense, but on defense as well. Max Crosby just got paid. He's going to be the highest, or he is the highest paid non-quarterback in the league. But beyond that, nothing really scares me.
I know you're trolling here, Adam.
Yeah.
But yeah, they don't scare me either. I mean, this move does nothing. If I were a Denver fan, this move doesn't do anything for me. Um, I'm happy with Bo Nix, and I'm confident in this coaching staff to know that this team will get better. They're going to add offensive players now. I know we're wanting to see what happens in free agency, but even and with the draft, of course. But given how the Raiders situation is, and Denver's on the up and up, this move doesn't do anything for me. And now, as you've seen the Broncos now making the playoffs, they are no longer considered underdogs. And speaking of underdogs, everyone, this basketball season, when your favorite star scores a bucket, Nikola Jokic, Kevin Durant, we're going to give you an alley-oop opportunity to win money from watching sports with Underdog. Underdog is one of the leading sports apps and you can play now in your state. Do you want to win up to 1,000 times your money? You can do so with Underdog.
To play, choose whether a player will go higher or lower on one of their stats, like points, assists, rebounds, and more. Underdog's got your favorite leagues, teams, and stars to choose from. Create entries with all basketball picks or mix and match across other sports. You can play with as little as $1. If you get everything right, you can win up to 1,000 times your money. So turn $1 into 1,000 just with your hoops knowledge.
So download the Underdog app and sign up now using the promo code MHuddle to unlock a special offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make your first deposit. Joining in on the fun when you sign up with promo code MHuddle. Claim your special offer today and get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly upon first deposit.
Must be 18 plus, 19 plus Alabama, Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT-STEP to 53342. New York, call the 24/7 HOPE line at 1-8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY.
All right, shout out to Underdog there. And then we got the Ronk coming in. You know, it's always good to see you, Michael Ronquillo. Thank you for tuning in as always from Facebook. Says good evening, Ron and Dylan on the Orange and Blue View. Go Bo Broncos. Again, Mike, thank you for coming in. We love you, my guy. We appreciate you.
You're the man, Ronk. Good to see you, buddy.
All right. And Adam coming back in, saw the Broncos trade up for Genty with Dallas. Wasn't the dumb move the way it made out. Yeah, I know there are a few, very few mocks out there having Broncos going up to get Genty. And again, Dylan, Genty's going to go top 7, 8. I think with, the implications of this Raider move has, Genty going extremely high. So, as far as the Broncos, I honestly just think the Broncos are gonna stay pat. Because now it would be ideal for them to trade back and acquire a few picks, because there are gonna be some blue chippers there, even in the 25 to 30 range, for them to grab. But as I think I alluded to it last show, and I'm sticking to this, guys, I honestly think they're going to stay put at 20, and Amari Hampton's going to be the pick. I feel it in my bones.
Yeah, nothing wrong with a stick and pick there. And like you mentioned, Hampton would be an amazing addition to this offense. Not the running back that maybe everyone wants in Genty, but we've mentioned before, and I'm sure everyone's seen it through social media or through other outlets, that Omarion Hampton is the running back one for a lot of teams, and maybe one of those is Denver. We don't know, but yeah, stick and pick would be great. Obviously, moving up, especially like in this situation with Dallas, moving up to 12, that's a little rich, especially for. And I know I keep praising how good Genty is, but man, you got a lot of holes to fill, and I'm not sure you can get all of that done in free agency with how the linebacker market's looking. Prices going up and up and up. We don't know what safety is going to look like in free agency as well. So you're not going to be able to cover all your bases, and you need more draft picks. And if possible, it takes two to tango. You do want to try and trade down a little bit, because the wealth of this draft, and you hear guys like Daniel Jeremiah and other draft gurus like that saying from picks 20 to around 50, 51, where the Broncos are picking, you get similar talent levels. Maybe you trade back and you just get a bunch of hits there instead of trying to trade up and make one big swing. Be a little more calculated.
Yeah, a little more calculated, but more strategic.
Mm-hmm.
And I trust Sean Payton and George Payton to have that mindset. Just because of where this roster is. Again, you're happy. You're happy kind of where the roster is now, just because you don't see a lot of people trying to leave, requesting trades. There are not a lot of free agents, that like a lot of these free agents that they do have, Dylan, they can resign.
Yeah.
I think really the only one that that kind of may be a little bit doubtful maybe is DJ Jones. And I'm thinking, Cody Barton's probably going to walk because they're going to upgrade that entire inside linebacking room. Um, so yeah, you focus on groups like inside linebacker, safety needs another player or two as well. And then I'm a stickler on interior defensive line depth. As we just saw with the Super Bowl, you can never have enough defensive linemen. So yeah, I just think moving up and sacrificing those picks is just not. It just wouldn't be smart GMing given where the Denver Broncos roster sits today.
Absolutely. And like you mentioned, the defensive line, especially, you got 3 guys who are going to be free agents after this coming season. It's better to try and fill a hole or, be prepared and take a guy at defensive line so you won't have to worry, oh God, now we absolutely have to go into the draft or absolutely have to go into free agency next year looking for defensive linemen. And, that's a little ways in the future, right? But that's the moves that GMs are looking to make, or that foresight that they have for building a team.
Definitely. And thank you, Adam, for coming in. We got Juan Espinosa coming in from Facebook. Thank you. Says, good evening, guys. When do you think the Broncos will start signing players for free agency? I can maybe see the signing. This is what I think, Dylan. I think that there's going to be one big splash for Denver, and the big splash may happen maybe later this week, near the end of this week, possibly early next or early the following week for inside linebacker. I really think that's the big splash here. So again, you do have that period, those 48 hours, the tampering period starting Monday. So teams and players can start to talk, and negotiate, but the actual signing of things doesn't happen until when the league kicks in on Wednesday. But yeah, I think near the end of the week, one is kind of what I'm thinking, because you know that's a glaring need inside linebacker, and they're definitely looking to revamp that room. Maybe within the next week and a half to 2 weeks, you might see a wide receiver and a running back being signed as well. I don't know how hot Aaron Jones's market's going to be, Dylan. I think that's, it might be a little lukewarm. We'll see. I mean, I know there may be teams out there looking, but I know that's a name that has been floated around. And then I know there's been rumors out there that they're looking for a veteran wide receiver to help out Bo Nix. So again, don't expect any big names. I think we can dispel those rumors of your Chris Godwin coming to Denver or even your Devontae Adams. But I'm looking along the lines of an Amari Cooper, maybe a Cooper Kupp once released. But yeah, I'm thinking maybe later next week, and the following week is when they start to kind of, make some of these signings. But you may hear in that tampering period that, there have been some terms that have been agreed upon. But yeah, the actual signing later next week.
Yeah, and you talk about the past couple of years under George Payton's leadership as a GM and fronting free agency draft, what have you. He's talked about being measured, taking some not necessarily lesser known guys, but guys who aren't going to break the bank and some role players, right? I think the Broncos could possibly be a little more aggressive if there is someone they really like a Greenlaw, even if they wanted to go get a Chris Godwin, a Nick Bolton, right? If you're going to swing, this is the time to do it. I'm not saying blow all your money on one guy, right? But you need to take advantage of Bo Nix's rookie contract.
Yeah.
I mean, you got the great coach, you got a GM who makes smart draft picks thus far. Why not take advantage? Obviously, you got around $40 million right now. you know, like just mentioned, you don't want to blow it on one player, but if there's someone they absolutely want to swing on, they should go for it. I mean, this window is going to close on this rookie deal in a few years. Like, let's build up this team now. And like I mentioned, I really love Chris Godwin. I don't know that they're going to be able to fork over as much money as they would like to,
Yeah.
which is unfortunate because he adds so much to this offense. We don't have a slot receiver, but a true slot receiver. But you also mentioned Cooper Kupp. That's an option if he's released. I've heard some rumblings that maybe Jacksonville's in on that, but what it probably be in a trade because I can't imagine he'd want to go to Jacksonville. They're closer to rebuilding than the Broncos would be, especially with Trevor Lawrence. Is he? I mean, he's a franchise quarterback, but is he like a next level guy? I sure haven't seen that. With Bo, there's more optimism. You have Sean Payton with actual pedigree, a championship city, unlike Jacksonville. So there's going to be a lot going through free agency, and you know, like we mentioned with the inside linebackers as well, that market's going up.
Yes.
I don't know how much Bolton's going to command, but I
We just
mean,
saw Zach Bond, $17 million a year.
yeah, and the Broncos. I know they really want to get an inside linebacker this time around, but how high are they willing to go with pay? Like I did talk about taking big swings, but how much is too much? And looks like for linebacker, it's going up and up, and maybe they go after a guy like Jamie Sherwood from the Jets. He's like a kind of a smaller name, but he's a good option there, especially if you consider his skill set. I do like Nick Bolton, but he is the sideline to sideline kind of stop the run guy. He's not a pass coverage kind of guy, and that's what we need. You know, we have Alex Singleton. He's coming off injury, which you know you're going to want to monitor, but we need to add a different archetype to that linebacking core.
Yeah, Dylan, and going back to the linebacking crew, that's why I'm not the biggest fan of Nick Bolton here. Sure, I mean if we sign him, it'll be an upgrade on what we have, but like you just said, he's sideline to sideline, can stop the run, but in coverage, he's not good. I've seen plenty of games where he's given up big plays. Even in the Super Bowl, we saw a few of them. And so that's not the guy that Denver needs based on how the group is constructed. Now, I went and looked at Dre Greenlaw's highlights. That's who Denver needs. And I know he's coming off that injury. I understand that. And in free agency, you're gonna have to overpay to a degree. But I just think, again, given how this room looks and the type of athlete Dre Greenlaw is, again, not only sideline to sideline, but just in coverage, like how he's very aggressive, very sticky when it comes to, holding up his end of the bargain against tight ends and some of those slot receivers. I just think that person is what the Broncos can use. Alex Singleton's great, sideline to sideline, great tackler. Could be a little better in coverage, but that's why you'll have Dre Greenlaw. So that's, in my opinion, Dylan, that's my number one. Because I think he'll bounce. It may take him, obviously, a little while to get his legs up under him coming off that injury. But I think once he gets back to, the condition that he was, I think it's going to be a good deal, and he's going to do a good job for the team. You also mentioned Sherwood, and he's good as well. I did watch a few, and I would like that as, maybe my second option. I think Nick Bolton's down on my list. But yeah, Dre Greenlaw would be the one that I would target for sure.
Yeah, Dre Greenlaw would be an excellent option. Like you mentioned, he's got the coverage ability. He's quick, but something this defense absolutely needs. And you got Patrick Surtain out there. He's an amazing player, defensive player of the year, unquestioned. But you need that fire, man. And we haven't had that since freaking Talib, maybe Kareem Jackson if he wasn't trying to take people's heads off literally. But Greenlaw brings that fire. And you saw as soon as he went out, not just because he's a good player, but once he went down in that Super Bowl, dead in the water. That defense they submitted. They gave up. And obviously the Broncos linebacking core was god awful. And it's been that way for a while. We're not really throwing assets at that when we should be. Possibly even some fans might not want to hear this, but in the first round of the draft, if it's becoming that much of a priority in terms of money's going up, right? Like maybe you want that makes the Broncos draft board a little different. Maybe they go after a Jalen Walker who is kind of hybrid more. Seems like he's going to be an edge guy, but I'm sure you could try him out at linebacker. And Jihad Campbell. I'm not saying I'm advocating for them to go that way, but I could see the rationale, right? But back to the Nick Bolton bit, it's just like it's similar to the DK to Denver garbage. Like, I don't know why you would trade assets to take a receiver that has the same skill set as Cortland Sutton. And people hear the name DK, and he's a big name. You look at the stats last year, Cortland Sutton had 89 more yards and 3 more touchdowns. So it would kind of be the same thing if you're going to get a Bolton. It's like, okay, obviously it's not a 1-to-1, but Alex Singleton has the same skill set. Sideline to sideline, stopping the run. So you need to diversify on defense, especially with that linebacker core.
Yeah, and I know we can get into the receiver talk with DK Metcalf again. What Seattle's requesting is not going to happen. A first and a third, like they're out of their minds. Again, as great as DK Metcalf is, very more athletic than Cortland Sutton for sure, but more productive, nah. And so I think with me, it's then you're going to have to pay him, because I think I've heard that he's seeking near the $30 million a year mark. And you got to pay Sutton, and then trying to negotiate and pay DK Metcalf. Yeah, it's just not feasible. So yeah, again, as great as he is, I don't think it's going to happen for Denver. I can see him going to. I know Green Bay is enamored with DK. They're looking for their number one, because that's a young receiving core as well, with Dontavian Wicks and Jalen Reed and Romeo Dobbs, and Christian Watson stays hurt. So they're looking for their number one, and obviously with New England to help out Drake May. But yeah, DK is nice, great player. Like them coming out of Ole Miss, but I just think given where the Broncos are, again, still got to pay Sutton. Nah.
Yeah, and another thing on DK, just before we move on, is I think he's pretty overrated in the sense that his route tree is non-existent. He's a go ball kind of guy. He's a big guy. He's fast, but that's straight line speed. It's not like he's making sharp cuts or he can, weave around defenders or find the soft zone. He's just like, hey, just throw it up to me, I guess. Like, I'm not trading a first and a third for that. That's absolutely ridiculous. So, like I said, it's a marquee name, but what's the substance behind that when we already have Cortland Sutton? Obviously, it's not a 1-to-1, right? But
yeah.
we have a guy who produced more than him last season with a rookie quarterback, I might add.
Yep, for sure. Yep. All right, and then we got Mr. Phil McLaughlin coming in. Thank you, Phil. It's always good to see you in the chat. And guy says, "Good evening, Dylan and Ron. What do you guys think about Justin Reed and Jawan Johnson? Hashtag Buckham, hashtag MHH for life." Dylan, let's split the two. So I'll let you take Justin Reed, your thoughts, and then I'll follow piggyback with Jawan.
Sounds good. So Justin Reed, obviously safety for the Chiefs. He's been very prolific for them for a while, patrolling that secondary. The Broncos have a need at safety across from Brandon Jones. Brandon Jones being the more in the box, come downhill and take your head off, kind of like Kareem Jackson, but with legal hits. But opposite him, PJ Locke last season, I had so much hope for him because he started off a couple of years ago playing very good, coming in for Kareem Jackson, who was suspended a lot of that year. And he showed flashes like, hey, maybe this is, we just leave him out there even when Kareem comes back, right? And good coverage ability, and overall just a much better player and added more to this defense. Fast forward to last year, boy, was he he was blowing so many coverages. He was missing tackles, especially that touchdown in the Buffalo game, the playoff game, to a running back. Are you kidding me? That's absolutely disgusting. There's no reason he needs to be starting for this team or any other. He's great backup. Love to have him there. Special teams. That's amazing. But having a Justin Reed, someone who's had playoff experience, had Super Bowl experience, coach was under Spagnuolo, who's a great defensive mind, probably the best one. Him and Fangio actually go back and forth, right? Pick your poison, but I think Justin Reed would be absolutely amazing for the secondary and bolster uh, what you already have in the secondary, right? You got PS2, Riley Moss, McMillan, and Brandon Jones was one of the best free agent signings that I can remember in the past few years for the Broncos. So adding another piece to that secondary, making a strength even stronger, I think that's absolutely worth a look.
Yeah, I agree. And just looking at the numbers here for this 2024 regular season, yep, 87 tackles, 2 picks. And then over the course of the career, 10 interceptions. So yeah, I mean, I'm with you. Again, yeah, given how PJ Locke does look, that this safety room needs to be upgraded. And I think Justin Reed is a viable option for sure. Phil, yeah, as far as Juwan Johnson, I like Juwan Johnson a lot. Prior to the news that just happened of another tight end that was released, I had him. I mean, I think we can put 2 and 2 together that Juwan Johnson was going to come to Denver. Just a big receiving threat at tight end. Again, that's what the Broncos are severely lacking. Very very athletic. And I know he had the talks with Peyton while Peyton coached him at New Orleans, saying that he'd be better, at the tight end position, and just big and physical, can high point the catch, very familiar with the offense as well. So he can come in for sure and, not only be a contributor, but, if they draft a tight end, which I'm expecting them to do, he can kind of be that mentor to the rookie tight end as well. So I would say, yeah, just a big physical threat, with those seams and down the field. Again, a part of the offense that's lacking. So, yeah, if Juwan Johnson does come to Denver, Phil, I'll be, more than happy with that. But going back to my first point, if you guys haven't noticed already, the tight end that I'm talking about is Evan Ingram. That's in tight end and free agency. That's my number one, and Juwan Johnson is second. When healthy, Dylan, I think he's as good as any other tight end out there, quite honestly. Now, he doesn't play in line, so, don't expect, a lot of the blocking drills from him. But, just as a weapon at wide receiver, again, kind of very similar to Juwan Johnson, I think he has big playability. I went through and watched some of, some Jacksonville tape with him and Trevor Lawrence, when he was on the field. And man, just him, down the seams and those sideline throws and just, jumping up, catching the ball. I just think, again, that's a dimension of Denver's offense that's missing. So I think he can come in and contribute right away. Now, we'll have to see. I don't have his numbers up in front of me as far as kind of what the value is for him there. Now, we just saw Gesicki get re-signed with the Bengals. What was that, around $8 million a year, Dylan, I believe?
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm thinking 8 to 11, 12 billion a year for Ingram. I know he's coming off that injury, but maybe somewhere in that neighborhood, I'll be okay with that, because again, you still have to kind of, get him the ball and whatnot. You have to overpay in free agency, but I'm okay with Evan Ingram. I'm actually more okay with Evan Ingram and then Juwan Johnson.
I'm definitely more than okay with Evan Ingram. We were getting a little excited talking about it before the show, but I've seen some complaints, obviously, when he was released that, oh, well, Denver shouldn't take him. He can't block in line and da-da-da-da-da and all this, nerd stuff. Listen, man, this offense needs playmakers.
Yeah.
And he may not be the inline guy, but he is a piece that Sean Payton can move around this offense and who makes magic with the ball in his hand. He gets open. And that's something the Broncos need, whether it's from a slot receiver, whether it's from a tight end. I don't care. Just get good players on this offense. If people are so pressed about it, you can go to the draft. You can get a guy who's a little more in line, right?
Mhm.
Like you don't. We talked about it with the linebacking core, diversity. Let's have different skill sets at each position, especially when it comes to the receiving core, and that includes wide receiver and tight end and running back as well, especially in the Sean Payton offense. Evan Ingram is a name that everyone should be looking at. Like you mentioned, we'll see what the contract looks like. I wouldn't want to overpay too much, but I do think this is an essential piece. And from what I remember, I believe is the past 2 to 3 years, he's the second tight end in terms of receptions behind Travis Kelce. So he's going to get fed, but he's used to getting that production. He's used to being fed in an offense. So, I mean, take a swing at it, right? I talked about it earlier. You're on a rookie, Bo Nix's rookie deal. You're not going to have to pay him for a couple of years here. Swing a little bit. Like let's make an effort.
Yeah, and I'm looking at Spot Track right now. Yeah, average AAV, ooh, a little north of 13 million a year.
And those are projections, right? You never know.
Projections, but yeah, you never know. I'm pretty sure when they negotiate, but yeah, maybe not that. Maybe a little lower than that, but I'll still be okay. Like I said, around maybe 11, 12 ish. But yeah, thank you, Phil, for that question. We appreciate it. All right, let's see. Let's do a time check. Okay, 36 minutes. We still got a little time. All right, let's see who else we have here in the chat. Got William Nas coming in. Thank you. Says, I will admit none of these guys going into free agency are appealing. Too many injuries, getting old, and yeah, a lot of drama. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, William. I mean, I think, but let's think about this. I mean, outside of cap money issues, I mean, a lot of players that have been known to go into free agency for years, they have been injured. Or they have at least some sort of injury history. And there's a reason why the team is releases them, right? They want to bring in young, fresh talent, right? They draft young and fresh talent. They want to develop that talent. And, they have older players that, may not be themselves. They may have lost a step, but that's not to say that they still cannot be a contributor on other teams and or still be productive. But now I guess I'm with you in the sense of I think this particular free agent class probably isn't the best. I mean, you do have some marquee names at wide receiver. Obviously, Devontae Adams, Chris Godwin, and then once released, maybe Cooper Kupp, Amari Cooper. So again, these are guys that are a little bit long in the tooth, which is to be expected to a degree. That have had some injuries. I don't necessarily think of these guys as drama filled as much. At least again, this particular crop. So yeah, is it the most appealing free agent class? No. But I think there are still a lot of guys out there at, I would say, top guys at their position. Like I said, tight end, wide receiver, and even at the defensive line front that can come in and contribute and provide value.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there, Ron. And William, if you could maybe drop a few names for us that you're kind of referring to. Obviously, we talked about DK. We know being kind of drama a little bit there. Devontae Adams a little older, and he's kind of become a little bit of a diva, I guess. He kind of just wants to be with Aaron Rodgers, it seems, where he goes. But, obviously, in you talk about how this free agent crop, older, injured, that's going to happen, right? I mean, you go to the draft, the draft always seems more promising, and that's kind of the point, right? Getting in new blood, the unknowns, and the unknown can be very attractive to people, right? attract fans and even us analysts, right? I like proven commodities, and sometimes you're going to have to go out in free agency and you're going to have to take a swing, even when you trade. If you trade for a player, right? I know a lot of people love draft picks and they're like, we can't give away our precious draft picks, and in certain instances, I completely agree, but you're getting it for known commodities. And in free agency, we know what these players are for the most part, right? So, injury concerns be damned. Drama, I get you there, but sometimes you just got to take a swing. You have to try and get better. Like I know Cooper Kupp is a name that's thrown around a lot, and I would love to have him on this offense. Yeah, do I know is he older? Yes. Is there injury concerns? Yes. But is it worth the swing? Why not? We don't have a slot receiver, a true one, and I've mentioned it show after show. That doesn't just mean a small guy that's fast. You need someone who can get open quick, get separation. That's Cooper Kupp. There's plenty, and there's different archetypes for slot receivers, right? You can be big and tall, like they did with Tim Patrick. He was a big slot there for a while. They tried to do it with Lil Jordan Humphrey, but he's very inconsistent. We'll just say that. But sometimes you just have to take those swings to try and elevate this offense, because that's what they're going to try and do, is put proven commodities through free agency around Bo Nix so that he can grow and get better as a player.
And I want to bring up an example I just referred to. Yeah, great points, Dylan. The Green Bay Packers. Again, there are rumblings out there that they're looking for a veteran receiver. Again, a promising wide receiver course, with the names I mentioned. But when you have young and promising, you still have development that's in play. So to bring in someone that is experienced to, again, not only help the team from an offensive perspective, but just kind of be that mentor, pays a lot of dividends. And why not strike at the iron while it's hot? Again, Bo Nix is on that rookie deal. Get him as many weapons as he can to try to be successful and make a run. Hopefully you want to make a run in this rookie contract. So I think, again, that some of the names here on the market may not be, the best as far as, kind of where they are now, but they can definitely help and contribute. Because again, William, you think back, and I'm gonna always bring this up, and this is for you too, Dylan, like the Bills game. Imagine if you had a veteran receiver there outside of Sutton in the Bills game, or even a veteran, more consistent, more known tight end. You just, or a running back even. Anything, right? So you think of situations like that in the playoffs when, you may see some promising plays and such from your young talent, but that veteran on a key third down going to be open, going to make that catch, going to make that conversion. So again, you think about things like that as you're trying to, get into the playoffs and then, make a run.
Yeah, exactly. And when we talk about trying to swing and get some of these veteran guys, that doesn't mean be reckless. Don't overpay if you don't have to. You got to be. I want the Broncos to be aggressive, but be smart. Exactly, measured. Just be smart about how you're doing it. Aggressive doesn't just mean we're going to throw all our money at a he's not available anymore, but like T. Higgins, right? You're not just going to throw all your money at one guy. You need to be aggressive where you need to be. Don't just be reckless.
Yeah, for sure. But interesting perspective, William. Thank you for coming in with that. We appreciate it. And we got Adam Strange with a just, I guess, out of curiosity question here. How tall should a slot receiver be? I'm not sure if there's really a height to it. I've seen him, 5'9", 5'10". I've seen him upwards as 6'2", 6'3". So I know we're kind of within that range as far as height. The Edelmans and the Amendolas were, undersized, but they were great at the slot, because I think with slot receivers, all you need to do is get good separation and catch consistently. I think that's all that matters. I mean, that's as a receiver as a whole, but I think, working in the slot, I mean, those attributes, those attributes are definitely ones you should have.
Absolutely. And like I mentioned, people, when they hear slot receiver, they think of like the Edelmans, the Welkers, and what have you, shorter guys. Tight ends have played slot before, I believe, right? I mean, they, especially you see in Shanahan's offense, you see in McVay's, you can see in Sean
Payton's, yeah.
They call it the big slot, right? And that's why you would maybe bring in an Evan Ingram.
Or
Juwan Johnson,
yeah.
Evan Ingram. You can use those guys in that role as slot receivers to box out defenders, smaller nickel defenders, right? It doesn't just have to be a wide receiver, but they can be in all shapes and sizes as long as they can get separation over the middle quick. And like you mentioned, catch consistently. That's something we saw a lot of drops last season from all receivers. Vele was great most of the season. Then the last few games, it's like, oh, come on, man. That was in your hands. So, just at the end of the day, just get good players. That's on offense, especially.
Yeah. Yes. Get good players. Get good players. Thank you, Adam, for coming in. We appreciate that. Phil back in. Thank you, Phil. He says, will we get Benito and Allen taken care of before training camp? Dylan, I'll toss this one over to you first. Thoughts?
I believe that Zach Allen's going to get sorted out here before training camp. That's a no-brainer to me. We mentioned earlier in the show, you're going to have a defensive lineman that after next season, not this coming one, but next season, they're going to be free agents. And this is a guy you don't want to let go. Absolutely not. He's proven. He played like 1 million snaps compared to any other defender in the league, which something you don't want. You'd like some other guys to step up, and that's why we want to build that defensive line. But Allen is much more proven than Nick Benito. Not that Nick Benito's bad or nothing, right? But he had an amazing season, even defensive player of the year consideration. But I want to see it again. I'm not going to pay him early, and maybe you're going to have to pay him a little more if he goes out and does it again. But I'd rather bet on letting him do another season, prove himself before we shell money out to him, and put that money towards a Zach Allen who has proven that he's good back-to-back seasons.
Yeah. That's a good question, Phil, of when it will be taken care of. I do think it will be. I do have hope that Allen will be done before training camp. Again, if we're looking at defense and who to play in order of priority, Dylan, for me, it would be Zach Allen first, John Franklin Myers second, and then Benito. Again, I think you can wait on Benito, quite honestly. Maybe you can see an extension happening, maybe even during the season or something. If he does go out there and you see like the first half of the season that he's registered, already half of his sack total that he has this past year, but I don't think the Benito one's going to happen before training camp. I do think Allen for sure. And I know Allen's looking at upwards of around 25 million.
Somewhere in that ballpark.
Million a year, and somewhere in that ballpark. So yeah, I think Allen for sure. JFM possible. But I think Benito's going to be once the season rolls around. But good question though. Thank you very much for that question. Let's see. And then William Catalano coming in says the defensive line market is really saturated. This free agent and the draft is loaded, so he might take a good deal with us. Yeah. Again, I think Zach Allen's probably, willing to, be reasonable. Again, he knows Vance. He loves Sean Payton. Loves playing for the team. So, I'm pretty sure he's probably willing to take a pretty good deal to stay in Denver, because this is where he wants to be. He wants to be in Denver. So I have no problem that's going to happen.
No, not at all. And he's been, like you mentioned, he's been with Joseph his whole career thus far. Um, and this team wins, unlike the Arizona Cardinals. So, yeah, I imagine he'd stay. Not necessarily like a hometown discount or nothing, but I think he would take maybe a little less.
A few less million. Yeah.
We're hoping anyway, right?
Yeah, like if he wants 25, I mean, if it's like 22, 23.
And that's a thing too with having rich owners that make their money outside of just the franchise, right? You could shell out some big signing
Up
bonuses.
front. Yeah, all that
That's
money up front.
that's a big plus to these players. So thankful that we have the owners that we do. And you're
Yeah.
not like when we were talking before the show, the Bengals, who rely on the team to generate money. They don't have any money from outside business or whatever. So you have guys like Trey Henderson, who wants out, Jermaine Pratt, who wants out, even T. Higgins. Let's be real, he wants out, but he's trapped there with a franchise tag because the owners can't pay him. So they're going to be paying, or looking to pay anyway, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins while their defense gets even worse than it is. You get rid of Alex Kappa to save money. Your offensive line's getting worse. It's good to have rich owners, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that Mike Brown of Cincinnati, man. I'm telling you, just how they do business. It's a head scratcher. It's a head scratcher. But thank you, William, for coming in. And then we have Phil coming back in, going to shore up the defensive line. Walker, Alexander, Williams. Who you taking at 20 or 51? Ooh. Honestly, I think if we're looking at these names, Phil, I like Darius Alexander a lot. Now, maybe not at 20 if he's there at 51 for sure. If we're looking at defensive line at 20, man, I don't think he's going to be there. But man, Dylan, Kenneth, Grant, I have him going like top 15. But Kenneth Grant, Phil, man, that guy is such a monster. And like I could just see him coming in day one, just being an instant, just how he can just off the man, he's a beast, he's a monster. That would be my really, I think that's the only if I were to take defensive line and if Kenneth Grant is there, Dylan, I'm running up to the board. I'm taking him. I'm taking him.
Mm-hmm.
You maybe can talk me into Walter Nolan. Again, I like Walter Nolan at 20. I would prefer if moving a few spots back, and grabbing them if you can. But yeah, I just think if you're looking at this list, I like Alexander. If he's there at 51, I like Williams. Jalen Walker just I don't know. He's just so it's hard to get a beat on him, right? Because he's hybrid. I can see him kind of playing snaps, at edge and at linebacker. But yeah, 20. I'm taking Grant. I know the name's not there, but I'm taking Kenneth Grant. He's there at 20. 51. If Darius Alexander is there, I'll grab him.
Yeah, and I'm total agreement with you there. I do like Walter Nolan quite a bit. If that's the guy they want at 20, I would take him. But I'm kind of with you. Or if you could get him a few spots later in a trade back, that'd be preferable. There's other guys out there like Derek Harmon. I like quite a bit. Hard to see him falling out of the first round, but you never know. The draft is weird. You get maybe a Tyleik Williams around 51. There's Deion Walker, Jordan Phillips, Omar Norman. There's a lot of guys on the defensive line that would come in and help immediately. One name that I completely forgot about in terms of free agency, actually, and that just happened. Rodney Garcia comes in and names him Jonathan Allen from the Commanders. He just got released. Obviously, he's going to have a pretty big market. So the Broncos maybe don't want to spend too much money, but that's another option out there to look at. But yeah, in terms of the draft, these three names that you list, I'd be fine with pretty much any of them. But like you mentioned, Walker, a little more of a a tweener. I think he's leaning more towards edge, but still wouldn't hate the pick. I mean, I doubt he even gets anywhere near 20 though.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. And yeah, with at Jonathan Allen, I mean, I just think, he's going to command a big payday. I just don't know if Denver's really willing to shell out that type of money for Jonathan Allen. Love him though. Great, great, great on the defensive line. It's been great for the Commanders, but I just think he's going to outprice himself in Denver, because even with DJ Jones and as William's saying here, I really hope we bring DJ Jones back, but I don't know. The more I'm thinking here, Dylan, the more I don't think Jones comes back. I just don't see him. Now, would I love to have him back? Yes. But I think given kind of what he's going to command, I'm pretty sure there's going to be a team out there that overpays him. Because right now, was he making like around 10 a year? And I don't think I think coming up next year, the Broncos are not going to want to shell out that. Now, if we're maybe talking 6, 7, or 8 million, sure. But I just think 10 might be a bit of a stretch, might be a bit of a bridge too far for Denver. I'm only speaking from the team perspective. That's what
maybe if he was like 5 years younger, I would look to be giving him a little more money, but he's older. He's a vet. He does know the system, and it would be awesome to have him back, but I'm not trying to shell out huge money for him. Obviously, it's not going to be huge money, but you're going to have to penny pinch some places, and I think that might be the case with Jones. I think probably 50-50 chance he comes back or leaves.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens there, but you do kind of want to keep some continuity and keep that defensive line strong.
Yeah, for sure. Again, William, thank you for coming in. And we got a later super chat here from Gary Palmer. Thank you, Gary. We appreciate it. He says, "Hey, O&G crew, good to see you. Good to see you too. I'm sure there's a plan, but I would love to see our top 3 needs, inside linebacker, tight end, running back, get a vet and a rookie. Go Broncos." Thank you, Gary, for coming in again. And yeah, I agree. I want, the Broncos to address those 3. And I do see those 3 being addressed for sure. Now, I would definitely see all 3 being addressed in free agency. Inside linebacker draft, I mean, they may take someone late. I mean, they may even go 2nd or 3rd round, depending on who's there. But I do, again, the big splash for me, Gary, I think is going to be inside linebacker. Tight end, yep. We mentioned names of Ingram and Juwan Johnson in free agency. Draft, Dylan, I'm thinking it's going to be a later round draft pick for a tight end. So the 2 names, Tyler Warren's not going to be there, and I don't know if Denver's that high on Loveland. Quite honestly, I don't know. I mean, I like Loveland, but I don't know if he's first round, at least for me. Again, I do think that running back is going to be first round, and then they look at the free agent market, like an Aaron Jones, Rico Dottle, someone like that in free agency for running back.
Yeah, and thank you for jumping in, Gary. Always good to see you here in the chat, showing us a little extra love. The top 3 needs there. Obviously, you want to add at least one of in each section through free agency, so you could be maybe a little more flexible going into the draft. But there's a good chance they double up on all of these positions, right? I mean, you need diversity at inside linebacker. You need anything at tight end. God, please, we don't have nearly enough talent there. And running back as well. I mean, a great run blocking O-line, I believe, top 8, top 5, and you just don't have the horses in the field to do anything with it. So, they will absolutely address all 3 of these, I think, in free agency, in addition to the draft.
Yep. And again, Theory, thank you for coming in. All right, guys, we are at an hour. I got the Ronk coming in from Facebook again. Thank you, Michael Rock here. We appreciate you guys. It's a great show tonight. Ron and Dylan on the orange and blue view. Go Bo Broncos. Thank you to you, Ronk. And thanks to all of you. We appreciate all of you tuning in tonight to be with us. If you haven't done so, make sure you subscribe to the channel, Mile High Huddle. Like, subscribe, and share. We greatly appreciate it. And if you haven't done so already, make sure you follow us on X. I am at Ron White NFL. And my partner in crime is at Dylan Von Arts MHH. Before we get out of here, I'm going to turn over to Dylan to shout out a few people that have contributed tonight for us.
Yes, thanks, Ron. And thank you all for joining us tonight. I mean, we capped out at 170 plus concurrent viewers. That's absolutely insane. The love you guys show us Saturday nights when you could be out doing any other activities. It's Saturday, you know, it's a weekend. But for us, it's a work day, but it doesn't feel like work coming in talking to you all guys. And I want to show a little extra love to those who showed us a little extra love. Our super chat superstar, starting with, of course, Papa Bear, David McGillrath. Thank you so much. Michael Ronquillo coming in not once, but twice. Thank you so much, Michael. Phil McLaughlin, as always, and Gary Palmer. Thank you guys so much. If we didn't get to your comments here tonight, obviously you can go onto YouTube after and look at the VOD. Comment down below, and we'll answer some questions for you.
Yes, most definitely, most definitely. All right, guys. Again, thank you all for tuning in tonight. It was a gas, as always. Like I said, this hour always goes by quickly. Talking and hanging with you guys. And until next time, hopefully next time you may see another name or two, a new addition to the Broncos. By this time next week, we'll see. But again, until then, enjoy the rest of your weekend and enjoy the upcoming week. And we will talk to you guys next weekend. Go Broncos.
Go Broncos.